Hello, everyone, and a happy New Year. Welcome to Adobe Live. I'm your host, Kieran Lewis, freelance graphic designer based in London. And today we have a real treat for you guys. We have the lovely brand designer and owner of WK Creative Studio, Whitney Kerney. Whitney, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. A little bit under the weather, but I'm very excited to be here.
Nice.
And yeah, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, positive vibes. And I've seen your work and again, super excited to share with our audience everything that you've got to go. So just a bit of little admin guys to share with you. As always, we like to share your comments. So if you're on YouTube, hop over to Behance. You can get us on b.net/Adobe Live. And that way I can share your comments directly with Whitney while she's designing. And just something to kick off with, you can check out the brand new Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Andrew Hortzradel every weekday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So tune in because you won't want to miss it and you'll definitely boost your graphic designs to the next level. Whitney, I'm super excited. So we just jump into it. And would you like to tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you'll be working on today?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Again, my name is Whitney Kerney. I'm the brand designer behind all the pretty things that you see behind WK Creative. I'm attracted to all things beauty and fashion, so you could really see that expressed creatively through my work and my style of design. I serve beauty, lifestyle, and fashion brands, which has a very feminine, modern, and chic brand design style.
Nice.
And so today I will actually be rebranding a floral design studio based in Austin, Texas, Remi Gold. They are an Austin-based floral design studio specializing in weddings and events, and they provide design services to Austin, Texas, and beyond. So they actually had a wedding, I think this week in Hawaii, which is super cool. And I'm kind of jealous that I'm not in Hawaii right now, but I think it's just so cool to me that they're
the next best thing.
Yeah, I'm like, it's like the first weekend, 2022, and like they're already in Hawaii, serving wedding clients.
Good way to start the year. That's like a strong way to start the year. And I can see as well, we've got some amazing people in the chat as usual. So a big hi to Cody, who's our moderator today. So keeping everything safe. Viola, Steve, Jack, Clever, that's a cool name. Clever, Nadia, and Dawn and Richard. So a massive welcome to you all. And yeah, I'm very excited to sort of show you guys Whitney's design process. I'm excited to see myself. So yeah. Let's jump into it when you're ready.
All right. Let's see here.
By the way, I love your style. Like already the color palette, I can see like a nice theme. It's really cool.
I'm like obsessed with Remi Gold's color palette. Like I can't wait to just show you and then put it together. I'm like obsessed with it. I wish I could just use it with every brand. But I can't do that.
It is lovely.
Yeah, thank you. So before, in the beginning of every project, I always like to put together like an in-depth brand strategy that outlines, the client's business goals, target audience, and, how we can use design to speak to them. So the strategy, it consists of like a mood board, like a preliminary color palette, and some pattern inspiration. So it just kind of allows us the opportunity to address anything that doesn't align before we move on to the design phase. It's essentially like a guide to help guide us throughout the entire, project.
Nice. And I've noticed as well, when I did a bit of research on your website, it's very strategically placed out. Like I love your about page and I think your sort of insight, how you work with the clients and you give them like a strategy, which is really nice. Like a nice process, I think, to kind of walk them through.
And I think it helps us designers to have that strategy in place, and it kind of like flows. It just makes our design process flow a lot more smoothly. I know when I first started out, like I didn't even have like a strategy. Like I was like, what is a brand strategy? But as I got more in depth with designing businesses, I was like, okay, so strategy definitely is important. And I need this, not only just for for the brand to have like a strategy in place, for their business, but just for from the design aspect too.
I love that. And I think that's great for our audience as well, because it's with Adobe Live, we've got such a range of, different people that will tune in, whether it's, senior creatives or even just people who are just curious about design. So even you mentioned in design strategy, I'm sure, again, the questions will hopefully come in quite thick and fast. So any questions you guys might have, definitely put them in the chat, branding strategy, or even just knowing about, Whitney's design background or education, just throw them in the chat and I will definitely share them while Whitney creates some beautiful design magic. So excited to see the process.
So let's create a mood board. Let's get started there. So actually you can create a mood board within like any program such as like Adobe XD or like Photoshop or InDesign, but I prefer Adobe Illustrator at times because I like to have it in the same window when I design, just so I can have like easy reference back to. But actually, mood boards, I actually have a lot of fun creating mood boards in Adobe XD because they have that fun drag and drop feature with like the images. So it's a little bit more easier.
Nice.
But for this case, we'll just design it in Illustrator.
Nice. That's like my sort of go-to. InDesign is my go-to, but I've got a soft spot for Illustrator. I don't know what it is. It's quite fun and flexible.
It's something about it. Yeah, I just like having, and I think like my ADHD brain, I don't like having like too many things. Like I don't like having too many like screens or like too many apps going on. So I like to have everything kind of streamlined in one app. So it's just like, it just works better for me personally. But I'm like a huge fan of Adobe XD. Obviously I'm in there a lot when I design like websites and things.
Nice.
But for this case, we'll just be in Illustrator.
Amazing. I can see in the chat as well, we've got Am, I hope I'm getting that correct. He's asked, can you ask a question about the business? So yeah, by all means, add a question in there and I'm sure Whitney will be happy to answer. And already there's a few people loving your designs already. We've got Richard, he said, very beautiful design aesthetics. And Cody said, lovely floral design. So already, I mean, it's only a few seconds and minutes in and you've got enough attention.
That makes me happy.
You're in a good place.
Yay. All right. So with Remi, so I like pull different inspiration sources from I pull inspiration from anywhere really, but like the two main sources that I kind of pull inspiration from is obviously Pinterest. And I do pull a lot of inspiration from social. I have tons and tons of collection folders saved on Instagram. But yeah, so I can just go on and on about the different sources that I pull inspiration from, like books and things, but from like the digital realm, it's a lot of it comes from like Pinterest and social.
That's like the go-to, isn't it? Like, I guess it's pretty sweet to save your archives and stuff.
And then with our goal with like Remi and Gold, our goal with Remi and Gold's branding is we wanted to convey like a high-end but fun experience that inspires. So we want this branding to convey like trustworthiness, creativity, excitement, as it attracts their ideal audience and clientele. So within the mood board, you'll be able to see like kind of like the design and style that I'm moving into when I go to, design their branding. We want to attract their like high fun, their high-end fun wedding clientele and installations for like larger brands like Southwest by Southwest, because they do a lot of installations with them, which is super freaking cool.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to go to Southwest by Southwest. But yeah, so we wanted to, have a very refined and elevated experience through, the brand design.
Nice.
So let's start just placing it here.
Well, whilst you're designing, we've got some lovely questions already, and it's by Am. It's a two-part actually. So he's mentioned he's actually got ADHD too, and he said any tips on being organized? That would be great. So I'll give you that first question, and the second one I'll give you that one after this first one.
Yeah, that is a very good question. I think it's like a never-ending I think you're always going to develop like some kind of routine or process to kind of like fit to whatever I guess is more fitting for you. But I think with me, like I have to have everything written down in outlines. Otherwise I'll feel all over the place and I won't be motivated to start. Like I have to have like an organized, like I just have to have everything organized and written down in my planner. If as soon as a thought comes, I have to write it down because I will forget it. And so I think like that helps. I have a notepad in my book. I always carry like a notepad and a pen in my purse everywhere I go, because it's like, as soon as I have a thought, like I have to write it down, or like I'll write it in my notepad in my phone. I think just like having your thoughts written down like helps me a lot. But I know everyone is different, but I know me, like I literally, my mind like moves faster than I talk sometimes. So
I love that. I feel like such like with creatives as well. It's, I mean, I live by a Moleskine book, and I like the really tiny ones, like the A6. And it's funny because my mum got me a Moleskine for my birthday for Christmas, and it was A6, it's super tiny. It's like, can you even write anything in that? It's so tiny. But for me, it's the idea of like a back pocket. Is you can just have it on the go, and you can just write notes as you kind of go along. And I think it's just nice just to, even if it's not drawing, just having some point of reference where you can just put everything down. Which I think is cool. So hopefully, that's that answers your some tips or that things you can kind of use. And again, we actually got a lovely comment here from Melissa. She's come actually just from the Creative Challenge live before, but she said that she's staying because of your amazing site that she's just seen.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
She's planning on she's planning on doing some actual branding herself. So this is a good bit of reference for her.
Oh, awesome.
So, welcome.
So yeah, so I'm just like going down and just kind of putting the mood board together. I mean, it's probably not as pretty as it would normally. I'm kind of moving a little fast, trying to move a little faster.
No judgment. You're in a safe space here. It's all good. So we all got our own different ways of working.
Kind of like, but you can kind of see like the direction that I'm moving into. It's very like whimsical and it's very like romantic, because like we do want to target, since their target audience is high-end wedding clientele, we do want to target that, that wedding clientele. So we want it to be a little bit more romantic, on the romantic side, but very chic too.
I love the font as well, actually. That's a beautiful font, the logo, the Remi Gold branding. Really, really nice.
Yes, we'll be tackling logos on day 2.
Oh, keep us in suspense, Whitney. Yeah. So they'll definitely come back in, I'm sure. And we've got another question actually to fill in, which is quite a nice one actually. I was quite curious myself. So how did you go about finding your first few clients, or even this client in particular? So Am said, my friends and family don't really need design, so it's a bit slow. So I guess it's, how did you kind of come about finding, securing your clients, and maybe any tips that you could give our audience about how they could potentially find some clients, or even just people to collaborate and work with?
I think if you share, if you're just first starting out and you don't have like many clients, or you don't have any clients at all, I would start by like creating like a mock branding of like a business that you want to work with, like a beauty brand. Like you're like, I want to work with a beauty brand. So maybe create like a mock business, like our mock beauty brand, and like post that on your portfolio. And then like you'll start, like that way you'll start attracting like the your dream clients. Like you'll start attracting the clients that you want to work with. I felt like that kind of helped me. Like I kind of like started just sharing like, I started out like just kind of doing like graphic design, and just started like sharing like cute little illustrations here and there.
Nice.
And that kind of like, started attracting like illustration clients, and then it kind of evolved into brand design. But I think just posting your projects that you're passionate about, and like that you want to work more of, like the clients that you want to work with more of, I think that helps to attract like your dream clients.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely spot. And I guess it's sort of touching on that as well. It's the idea of just being proactive, isn't it, in our space? And maybe even more so during pandemic and lockdown, people are at home, you've got more time to perhaps reflect through, social media. So even, having a website and just keeping up to date with your projects, or even doing collaborations with friends. I always find like sometimes, I don't know if you ever do that as well, Whitney, but when you collaborate with friends, just for, fun projects or projects you're passionate about, people see that, and, directors or other, agencies see that too. And it kind of shows that initiative in terms of, wanting to work more in that space. So, little bits kind of here and there.
I think like just don't post just to post, being like, oh, I have to post because I have to I have to book clients. Like post like with purpose. Like you want to post with strategy. You want to have a strategy behind posting. So yeah, I would just like post the projects that you want to attract more of. Like if that's like beauty brands, like, post like your beauty clients, or like make up a branding and create that and post that. And like, you'll start seeing like those clients, like, reach out to you about work.
Yeah, you just gave us a little gem there. Post with purpose. I love that. That's like I want on a t-shirt. That's like a solid bit of feedback and advice. But that's I completely agree. Completely agree. So again, that's a really lovely question. So please, by all means, put your questions out there. And again, a massive welcome to Adobe Live. And again, you'll see Whitney actually going through her design process. Currently, she's doing a mood board, looking at different color palettes. So any questions related to branding, related to Whitney and her background, throw them in the chat and I'll be happy to share them across. I can see they're coming in thick and fast, but I'll let you do a bit more first and then I'll feed them over.
Am I moving like too slow?
No, it's all good.
I feel like I move real slow. Like I am a very like slow, like I work real slow. Yeah. Like because I don't like to rush through things because it's like, and I think also because I have ADHD, I have to like ensure I'm not forgetting anything. So I move a little slower.
No, and I think it's nice, like digesting period. I think, I mean, with Adobe Live, again, it's all about the process. So, I mean, you've got obviously deliverables and it's nice to see the final thing. But again, I always think that the kind of basis behind what we do at Adobe Live is to see, you as an individual and your process and how you work things out. So I'm sure audience are here to, they're here for it. So it's all positive, it's all love. So
because I'm like, I do move slow. So, but I try not to put too much pressure on myself either. Like to not like move too fast, like, because branding does take time. So it's just like, I have to remind myself that.
We got some lovely, another question actually. So we've got one from, I hope I say this correctly, Magadalin, I hope I said that correctly. Hi, Whitney. Did you use the same brand strategy for your own brand as you do for your clients?
That is a very good question. I feel like designing for yourself is always so much more difficult than designing for a client. I'm actually in the process of, I guess you could say rebranding. I like to say refining because I feel like I've already kind of established my style. But I'm like in the process of rebranding and it's been a challenge. I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I'm like,
it's hard, isn't it?
Like for like example, like these colors, like I'm like obsessed. I'm like, I want these for my own, but then it's just like, but no. And then I see like another color. I'm like, ooh, no, I like that. It's so hard to like, it's so hard to kind of like nail down like a certain direction for your own brand. But I do kind of like the same strategy, like process, for myself. It's just, I feel like it takes me a little bit longer because I feel so distracted because it's just so much harder to just design for yourself. Like I still go through the process, like filling out my branding questionnaire and things like
even
that.
For yourself.
Yeah, even for myself. Yeah.
I love that. That is, it is difficult to be fair. I mean, it's always gonna be personal to you. Even designing for family, I always find it's the same thing because you want to do your best. And when it's yourself, you can be so critical, right? It's hard to kind of see that end goal and you're your own worst critic, but yeah, I think it's just slow bird catches the worm. That is a really bad analogy. I haven't said that correctly, but you know what I mean.
No, I know exactly. I've heard that before.
Early bird catches the worm. That's it.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, I know I'm that way. I'm like, I feel like if you take your time, and I feel like it's like there's another phrase. It's like slow and steady wins the race. Like that's how I feel. Like with just like with branding and things like that, like slow and steady wins the race because
exactly.
I feel like if you rush through it, like post with purpose, like design with purpose. Like you don't want to like rush through it. It like takes time. So I always tell my clients, I'm like, just know that like, there's going to be, it's a month long, it's like a few months long process. And if you add on website, like you're looking up to like 6 months, like it's a process.
Definitely. I think Cody Bear, he's got my back. Cheers for that. He said slow and steady wins the race. That is what I was trying to, it's almost like, when you have the word in your mouth, but it won't come out in that.
That's like story of my life because like I said, going back to my ADHD brain, my brain moves faster than my mouth. Sometimes things come out and I'm like, what did I even just say? Like,
so, I mean, I can see I can love what you're doing.
Like, so you can see like, even like the pattern inspiration is very, like, I love the abstract wash feel because it kind of gives off a very whimsical feel. And I like it because it feels just real authentic. And that's like was really important to the owner, Twyla. Like she really wanted her brand identity to feel authentic. Because that's like what she wants, like her client, like her, like when she's like, working with her clients, like she wants them to feel like they're in good hands, like the authenticity.
I get that. And I like the shapes. I mean, there's a certain almost
Yeah.
like geometric style, especially the one in the middle in the second column, which is like kind of geometric shape.
Yes.
I love those. Really
Yeah, so
nice.
within like this mood board, we definitely wanted to incorporate like the gold and magic perspective of their branding. So
Mm.
yeah, I love the shapes of the half circles and the arches for some of their potential patterns, and design elements. To embody that sun perspective. When I was creating this mood board, I was thinking kind of like an abstract point of view of a setting sun and a rising sun.
Mm. Nice.
If that makes sense. It made sense in my mind, and it made sense to the owner, which I'm happy about.
That's good.
But
I love that.
so I love that. And then I just love how the arches kind of embody the shapes that are used for like like those fun installations that you do see for like photo ops at weddings, or or like the arches behind like at the ceremony of the wedding, those like fun arches. I do
Love that.
love like the abstract washes, to kind of give off that whimsical point of view, to tie in that floral and beauty art perspective.
They love that. One thing I did promise myself before this stream started is that I would not mention, because this is obviously about weddings, and I am getting married this year. And we had a, just for the audience, we had a, right. We and I had a little nice catch up before the stream, and we kind of spoke about it. And then when I realized what you were branding, I thought, how can I not mention the wedding? But I don't want to go too off piece. But I can feel like these what you're showing me now, I can totally relate to what my fiance and I have been looking at for the past few months. So yeah,
good, yeah. So like that was kind of like the goal, with the mood board, is to kind of like portray that. I just really wanted to give off that romantic and whimsical feel. And then I also kind of brought in like the chic typefaces that were kind of inspired by like wedding state, like the typefaces that you see on wedding stationery. I felt like that was important to target, that wedding clientele as well.
I love that. Do you ever go to, like, I guess maybe when we could, because during lockdown, but any like, I think they have like kind of wedding shows where you can see almost like because my mom does event planning on the side as well, and I remember going with her to these events where they show event planners and like different stationaries, and they have almost like conventions for wedding. Have you ever been to some of them just to get research, or was it mainly on?
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't. I feel like I haven't been to any convention like of anything.
Okay. It's before lockdown or after lockdown?
Yeah.
Like.
No, I haven't. And the thing is, I was gonna get married like a few years back, and like I just remember going through like even just like doing this mood board. I was just like, I remember like going through like my Pinterest and like pretty much I feel like I was pinning some of these items like this is how I want my like my arch to look, or like what my
It's really cool because I get the vibe as well. This is obviously a client you're working with, but because this is naturally the style that you kind of gravitate to, it feels like a passion project, but even though it's for a client, so it's quite nice that you've got that connection. I think that's really cool.
Feel like going back to like posting with like purpose and like posting like the branding projects that you want to attract more of. I feel like it just makes your process a lot like smoother and a lot more fun when you're like designing for a company that you're passionate about. That like this is like a floral design studio, and I'm like obsessed with floral. Like I feel like if I wasn't like a brand designer, like I would be a floral designer. Like I love florals.
Nice.
It's just like so working with clients that you love, it just makes your job so much more fun. And it also just makes you so much more inspired to create, and like it just everything comes from like an authentic place.
I love that. And I always feel like the clients can tell where, when you're really interested in the project, it's just a good vibe overall, isn't it? It's a mutual respect. It's you probably do your best work as well. I even from my own line of work, I always find when you are naturally invested in the brand and you can relate, and you both parties want to do well, it's going to be hopefully a good outcome. So no, it's a really nice brand to work on.
Sure. I'm obsessed with this brand. We're in the process of designing their website, which will be launching this month, so I'm really, really excited to get that launched, and just to kind of see the branding in full swing, because it's been a process. We've been working on it since September, so it's been a journey. And like she's like the owner, and the gals of Remi Gold, they're just literally like the best people. Like
amazing.
they're like,
are they tuning in? Are they tuning in today? Are they like tuning in for the Adobe Live or not
They're
sure?
honestly so busy. They probably don't have time for little old me to, but I know that they'll probably watch the replay.
No, and actually, I'm glad you mentioned replay because that actually reads in quite nicely to those who are quite new to Adobe Live. We always have replay, so even when we're offline, it's quite strategically placed that
You know, if you
conversation.
get too busy and
Yeah.
you can't tune in or you have to hop off real quick, you know, there's always a replay.
Exactly. Always a replay. Adobe Light, it doesn't switch off. When we do, it's still carrying on. So by all means, even when we're done and dusted, you can watch a lot more live stream, streams, live streams, all streams that have been and gone, and then get your creative process flowing. We've got a lovely comment here from I hope I'm saying this correctly again, Barbiana, and if so, that's a beautiful name. Love your work. She has a smiley
Thank
face,
you so
Whitney.
much.
So it's it's all good.
Also too, so this is this girl right here, her name is Whitney. She works with she's actually one of the gals, the Remi gals from Remi Gold. So I wanted to, when creating the mood board or when I had my discovery call with Twyla, the owner, I actually had a discovery call with Whitney and Twyla. Whitney was on the call too. Her name is Whitney too, which is really cool. But nice. Yeah, so it was really important for them to bring in their team culture because it's like they are very passionate about their team and work culture. So I wanted to bring in pictures of their team to showcase the community and the team-oriented voice that was important to Remi and Gold as a collective. So I wanted to bring in this is the Remi gals right here, and like this is Twyla, the owner, and then this is Whitney. So yeah, nice. So I wanted to bring them in and be a part of the mood board.
Yeah, I love it. Very nice. And actually, we're already quite halfway in, about half an hour in. And again, for anyone who's just joined in, just to give everyone a heads up, so today we have the amazing brand designer, Whitney Kerney, and she's in the process right now of creating a lovely mood board on Illustrator. And this is for a nice refreshed brand identity for Remi and Gold, an Australian-based floral studio. So a massive welcome if you just joined us, and we are in the real flow of it as Whitney goes along. So welcome.
And again, it's not, the lines are not even here, but you get the gist.
We get the. Do you know what? I am a thing for alignment, but we're not judging. I get the idea.
Like this is really killing my OCD right now. But you get the picture. We
get the message. We get the picture. We don't judge her. It's all safe. Yeah. It's
like
subjective.
You get the idea. I'm like trying to throw out perfection this year. Like I'm like, it's gonna be the death of me.
It can be fun and messy. It's all good. I'm quite curious. So a question I'm quite curious about your background is, did you go to university, college? Did you study branding? What's kind of like your design background?
I actually have a business degree. And then I have a background in fashion. So I used to have a clothing brand. I actually used to have two clothing brands. So I had one named Wimmick, which was kind of like, it's kind of my initials pronounced out. Nice. So yeah, so I was really passionate about fashion. Like even throughout high school, like I just wanted to make clothes, and like I like applied to go to, oh my gosh, I'm like drawing a blank of like the college, but it's, or FIDM. So I got accepted to FIDM in LA when I was a senior in high school, but at the time they weren't accredited. So my parents were like, no, we are not forking out this money for you to go to an uncredited college. So I was like, okay, you guys are ruining my dreams. But I ended up going just to get a business degree. So that way one day I'll have that knowledge and I can open up like a boutique. Like that was like my dream. Like I wanted to have, like, I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want to be like a huge like fashion designer or anything. I just really just wanted to have a boutique and be happy. Like,
that's the dream, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I just wanted to have a boutique and make clothes and just, be happy. But I realized that like I loved fashion, but I loved like the branding and marketing aspect of my job a lot more. So I kind of started pursuing graphic design, and then I went to school for graphic design. And then I just kind of evolved more into like the brand design aspect of it all.
Nice. And obviously, you're a freelance brand designer, is that correct? You don't work for an agency or studio?
No, just me.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. I did used to work for, and when I first started out, I was like a digital marketing assistant for an agency. Which was like literally it was a very nice like learning experience. And then I like, obviously I knew that wasn't like the end goal. Like I wanted to like work for myself and, have like my own agency one day. So.
Nice. I love that. I
Yeah.
feel like it's quite nice for anyone who's, again, even because it's quite nice again with the different audience that we have at Adobe Live. Like I said, it ranges right from senior creatives to people just starting out, and it's quite
Yeah.
nice with the different backgrounds of people and where they've come and why they actually want to get into this realm of design. So, I mean, even any questions you guys might have in terms of, how, you come about, branding or education within design, like, put these questions in the chat. I'm sure, as myself and Whitney can answer them. So yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I'm like in the process of like, looking to hire this year. So I'm excited to expand and grow my team because it's been a one-woman show for a little while now. Not too long. It'll be like 2 years in March. Since COVID forced me to go full time.
Nice. I mean, I went freelance officially, about a year today, actually, or a year tomorrow.
Yeah.
So quite
I feel like
recent as well. So
a lot of people have like no choice. They were like,
exactly.
it's now or never.
It's nice. And even for
Yeah.
for Adobe Live, when we have different, like yourselves and other creatives who come on as well, it's quite nice. We have a mixture of, some people with agencies, some people are freelance. And a lot of people are almost self-taught, which is quite nice as well.
Yeah.
You almost forget you can do that as well. You don't have to, be generic and to go to university. You can be completely, self-taught, watch stuff on Adobe Live and, get a real feel for it. That's looking good, Whitney. I really like this.
Okay, but just forget about the forget about like you would normally go in there and like go through to your like a little alignment here and kind of like align all the pictures, but you guys get the idea. Like you can see like the overall design and voice that we're trying to go for with the branding.
Can you zoom in a smidge? Just a smidge. That way we can all get.
Let's zoom in to see the details.
We can all get a feel. So we can all get a feel, and it's really lovely.
So you can see like obviously the typefaces are very inspired by wedding stationery, just like those really chic and romantic typefaces that you see on like like the RSVPs and things like that. So we just really want it to be romantic and and then like obviously the arches are very or something that we want to incorporate in like the patterns or even just some of like the logo marks. And I love like this like like the little half circles to kind of give off that sun perspective. Since they do have gold in their name, it was really important for us to like kind of bring that out in the branding, like that golden. So their tagline is for the golden. So we really wanted to highlight that. We did like a huge like brain dump of like taglines, and for the golden was the one that stuck.
I love that.
Yeah.
You can definitely see, I mean, the whole wash of all the visual, you can definitely see a distinctive color palette from left to right. So lovely times.
So like I normally, like I always like tell like my clients that like don't get overly focused on like the colors within the mood board. Although my mood boards are definitely driven by color. I tell them not to like really focus on the color, just focus more on like the design, the style, and like the overall voice. Because we'll finalize like color swatches like later on. But
that's always difficult sometimes with because it is obviously color is that part at the end. It's almost like the icing on the cake, but you kind of want to show them just the skeleton first, and then you think, okay, then we apply on top. So that is a process itself, isn't it?
So that's why I still try to keep my mood boards within like the colors that I'm exploring for the branding, so that way they don't get thrown off too much.
I get that.
But that kind of like moves us into. But I in the brand strategy, I also like show them like a preliminary color palette, and they'll have like that opportunity to be like, hey, this particular swatch doesn't resonate. Hey, can we bring in like, more sages, or, they have like that opportunity in the feedback process of the brand strategy to address any like colors that don't feel aligned, or, that they want to maybe see more of. But yeah.
Oh, I love that.
But so like once the mood board is done, I usually move into like developing, like that preliminary color palette. So within like the brand strategy, I usually, obviously I present the mood board, like the target audience, like the core values, all that nitty gritty stuff. And then I like show them like a preliminary color palette. with like Remi Gold's color palette, we wanted like these colors to convey like the elevated, high-end, uplifting persona that they want their brand identity to exude. So we wanted a palette that is like kind of like inviting, but kind of warm, very like warm and inviting. So pairing like, earthy tones like pinks and splashes of lilacs and sages to give off like that calm, but passionate and honest and trustworthy feel was like our goal. We just wanted to feel like greens. Me too. Oh my gosh. Twyla was like, I need sages in this. And I agreed. I agree. Cause I think like it kind of gives off like that nice, like inviting, like calm feel. Definitely. But we want her brand and color story to get off. So we want, like, obviously we want their audience to feel like they're in good hands when, they hire Remi Gold. So I feel like with these colors, it's a very welcoming and good feeling. They're like, they're bright and they're warm. It just has like a good mixture of everything, of all the feels.
I love that. Yeah. We got a lovely, interesting, it's actually a more of a point really, which is a good point from David. He said, so most of my branding clients struggle to understand mood boards. I always find it's easier to walk them through it, otherwise they take it literally. Farm Designs Brandscapes processes works a treat. Farm Designs, I never heard of that before actually. Farm Designs Brandscape. But yeah, I mean, I totally understand what you mean about with clients, because I think we just said before, it's a process, right? It's a stage of trying to get them to understand what you're trying to really achieve, and sometimes you have to walk them through a bit more than you would have other clients, but it's hopefully both sides are in agreement and you can kind of get to that final deliverable.
And I think that's why the brand strategy, like having that brand strategy presentation is important, because you can like walk your client through the presentation, like walk them through the mood board, and really just like, it's a very like in-depth, like I think I have like an example of like the brand strategy. So it's like really, really in-depth. So it's like, it kind of tells them like it's an in-depth presentation that outlines how we use design to accomplish your goals, from ways to connect with your audience to evaluating your place in the market and how to stand out from your competition. And then I just go in and I explained, a lot of some designers do like video recordings to walk them through the brand strategy, but I haven't had any luck with that personally. So having this brand strategy that kind of like just has like kind of like a little word dump of everything, it really helps. And it gives them time to really go through the brand strategy, and then for us to, for them to give me their feedback on it.
I love that.
So I think like walking them through the mood board process and just like letting them know, like, let's try not to overly focus on colors at this point. Like, I think like letting them know that they're like, okay. Cause I mean, they are like, when they hired you for your expertise. So essentially they do trust you. You just have to you just have to walk them through it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a good. And to be fair, sometimes I always find it's when you've got clients, especially when it's a business that's personal to that client, to say it's like a family business, or there's always going to be that sense of it's very subjective, of course, but it's always going to be very personal to them. So it might take a few more rounds of feedback and amend, more than you probably would have any other, if it wasn't a close connection to the brand. So I totally get what you mean. Hopefully it's all good.
I just think like just having that brand strategy and that presentation in place like helps like tremendously. And it really like gets them excited to move into the design phase too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's the mood board. Was there any other questions about the mood board, or?
I mean, by all means, anyone who's got any questions related to even just the way you've picked these colors out, just put them in the chat. And I think I'm quite curious to sort of see the next sort of part to the
I'm curious to see which ones are. I want to know like whose favorite, like like what
we could even do a poll, couldn't we?
Let's see. Let's see like what colors they're loving.
we could narrow it down, because there's quite a few.
I know, we're going to narrow it down. Like, we're going to do that. We're definitely going to narrow it down.
Like a strong 4.
I know, it's a lot. But of course, this is just like the exploration and like the preliminary and like just kind of like a base of kind of like what colors we're exploring. And then of course, I later on like finalize it in my design process. But this is just kind of like, I'm feeling all of these colors, right now. And then you can even see these colors within the mood board too. So like I said, the mood board is definitely a German force in my mood boards, just so that way I can kind of give my clients a glimpse into the preliminary color palette, but it's not nothing solid.
It's not finalized.
Yeah.
No, I get that totally.
Yeah. But I always like with fall, when I start working on like developing like a preliminary color palette and like finalizing colors, I always like to do like a Pantone dump of colors to get like that base down before I start pulling colors from like images or any other inspiration. So Pantone Connect is a great tool to use when pulling color inspiration. And I love it because you can actually add it as an extension in your Adobe Illustrator.
Nice, dropping gems. I love this.
Yeah.
Please share.
It is like, I think it's like a monthly subscription, but it's like $7 or $8. So it's literally like, it's amazing. Like, I love it. So yeah, I love Pantone. Like, I usually always just kind of like, if I'm feeling like, oh, I need like a terracotta for this, like I'll just like, you know, put in terracotta and like, you know, a bunch of like different like shades pop up. So it kind of gets my juices flowing. So I love like starting there when it comes to my colors versus like getting like colors pulled from images. Like I still do that, but it's like my last phase.
The last resort. I get that. No, I've got like a GF Smith, like the book is probably as thick as anything. And it's just like, I could spend, because mainly my work is print. So it's just, and obviously they always release new ones out. So it's almost like you could spend a good afternoon just flicking through the different.
Oh my gosh, you can get lost in it. Yeah.
We can have a whole Adobe Live based on just color and Pantone.
Yeah. No, I literally can probably spend a full day exploring colors. Like it's definitely a process because it's like you just want it to feel like color is driven by your mood and like how you feel. And so it's like such an important part of a brand identity because it's just like a driving force of like how you want your audience to feel when they see your brand, so it's just like I always have like so many colors that I'm exploring, and then of course I finalize them.
And it's a mood, right, as well. Like I guess it's always I mainly work in print and it's editorial, and I always find obviously with color, CMYK and RGB, it's there's a difference between color, and it's almost like when you find that right color on the screen, you never know depending on the stock you use or print how it's going to work. So it's almost like a bit of a hit and miss depending on the process.
I'm always telling my clients, like, I'm like, once you get to the print process, it's a process, so don't be overwhelmed if something doesn't like turn out right. Like so I'm here with you. We're gonna get this right.
It's so
because it's always like you could be like a veteran in design, and like it's still a process when it comes to print.
Totally. I mean, I get for even those in the chat, I would love to hear any sort of stories you guys might have related to projects you've done where it's with color, or things might have not gone so well, or things might have gone really well. Like, share that with us as well. We would love to kind of
share some tips and tricks too. I want to know like what y'all do for or if there's any designers in the chat, like I would love to know like what's y'all's process for the colors, because I mean I'm like open to like our process is always evolving, so I'm always like I always love to hear like what other designers' process is when it comes to like picking out colors. Like I see a lot with them pulling like colors from like images and things like that. With me, like it's Pantone, so it's like I would love to hear what other designers do too.
Definitely. Well, maybe we could do like, I mean, it depends what the next part, what you want to do is, but we could also do like a little poll if maybe you picked out a few colors, or whether you want to. I mean, what would you like to do next? You let me know. How would you like to? We could do a poll, or we could do the next part.
Yeah, let's do a poll real quick and see like what color people are liking.
Nice.
Yeah, what people, what color swatch. I even labeled them with the color names.
I love that.
It's a little easier for you guys. So,
that's, I mean, just the idea if you picked out like 4 or 5,
maybe? You guys are loving. Yeah, like 4 or 5. Like me personally, I'm obsessed with this wild rose color. When I was doing the presentation for Remi Gold, I was trying not to use this color only. Like I was like, Whitney, you got to use other colors in the palette. But no, I'm like obsessed with this wild rose color. It's so pretty. And then the mauve glow is like, it's so
could you zoom in a tad? I mean, maybe, and that way we can see. That way maybe we could do like a poll, like
it, or should I
zoom
in more?
Yeah, I can see. I mean, then again, my eyes are rubbish. I don't know. But maybe we could pick out like. We can maybe pick out like, I don't know, like maybe a different, say maybe 4 of your favorites or like 5, and then we can make that in the poll, and then we can sort of see what everyone's feeling. What ones would you sort of choose, Brittany, as like your favorites? Like top 3, would you say? Or
oh
top
my gosh.
4?
Okay, so this is so hard. Okay, so I really like, obviously I'm obsessed with the wild rose color.
Okay.
And then
so I love wild rose. Cool.
And I love the Schintz rose. I can't pronounce that, but excuse me, it's a Pantone color, but I cannot pronounce this. It's like Schintz rose or something. I'm not sure, but I love that one. Wild rose. Of course, I love like the baby pink, the bronze. I love the
Okay.
bleach mauve.
Bleach Mauve. What a name.
Yeah, I love
Okay.
it. Yeah. And then
Strong name.
let's pick like one more. I'll say the rose bloom because I'm obsessed with how bright this is.
Yeah. Do you know, my brain is like is very much like an old mat. So you might have to kind of maybe do like a recap of which ones.
Oh, okay, okay.
We can have that like down for our nice little poll.
Okay, so baby pink.
Okay.
I would say honey peach because I love the honey peach. Yes.
That's a good name as well.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll do peach puree.
Okay.
Wild rose. And then mauve glow.
Can I throw a fly in the ointment? Can I do like a green as well? Because I was liking that.
Yes. Okay.
Could you zoom
I'm
in
obsessed with this prickly pear color.
Prickly pear.
Yes.
I love the names, to be honest.
I know.
They are good.
Pantone is like the best with names.
They are good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, perhaps, prickly pear is good. I mean, I don't know if we can maybe like Cody, we can do like a little poll and then we can see what people are thinking. And I mean, I can already see already in the chat, people have picked up, you've got rose bloom.
Yes.
Is a good one.
That one's a good one.
So many colors. Sorry, Cody, there's a lot of colors to pick out.
I know, it's a lot.
Yeah. But and then we've got wild rose is David's favorite, I think, as well. Gray lilac. Oh. Okay. I mean, we've got a strong mix of.
Oh yeah,
colors.
gray lilac. I was like, where have I seen that at? It's on the bottom. Yeah, gray lilac is really pretty.
You know, okay. So I don't blame you, Cody. So we might have to do one final recap of the very final.
I feel like we'll have to do another poll, like when we finalize like the colors more. Over here. But
that's
yeah.
A good point. Or we do like another like I don't know, artboard with like say 4 colors that are like picked out and that what we can see on screen.
Okay.
What are the final 4?
I love that.
But that's only, I mean, I don't want to disturb your process unless you've got something next you wanted to work on.
No, yeah. So yeah, no, I was just really gonna start pooling the colors and putting like a more like strategic color palette right here. So for this case, obviously I already have all the colors pooled from Pantone. So again, these are quite a lot of colors for a brand palette, but this is just like a preliminary palette that I'm exploring that I usually finalize later on in my design process. So typically, like, as I mentioned earlier, like typically when I put the branding presentation together, that's when I get into the nitty gritty of like finalizing like the colors, because it helps me see like what colors pair well together and kind of gives me an idea of like the overall feel we're aiming for.
Nice.
So like also in my process, I always like to provide more colors than the typical brand palette, only to have additional colors that act as like contrast, or like even if at a later date, like if the client has like a launch of something new that they want to promote, that they can bring out that color that they haven't used it in their palette to use for the content for the launch. So that would be act as like the brand color for the launch. You know, so I always like to have a little bit more than the typical palette, because I feel like what's like the common like palette like number, it's usually like probably like 8 colors usually.
You feel like the floodgate could open. You never know what.
I know. With
point,
me,
right?
like this is like this right here is like this is like a common color palette, like you know, quantity for me. Only because I always like to think ahead for like the client and their client's need in the future. Just, you know, so that way they have extra colors that they could use for something special, or you know, or if one color, if they're like creating a graphic or something and one color is like maybe not like popping up as much, there might be another shade of something similar that will act as like a contrast, that way to pop more. So I always like to have a little bit more than just maybe 8 colors in a palette, so that way the client is well taken care of when it comes to colors.
I love that. You made quite a funny point. I just thought, I don't know, I'm gonna geek out now, but I just thought of a meme when you said make it pop. It's like that idea where you got your toolbar and you got like if a client say to you, just make it pop. You don't know what you want that means.
Oh my God, yeah. I can't believe I said
make it
that. Pop. But that's how that's
give it a wow factor.
Yeah, like, you know, give it a wow factor. Yeah. But it is true, you know, when it comes to colors, yeah.
Yeah.
Steve made
Steve made a quite a funny point. I don't know if he just dropped it now, but he said, "Are we talking colors or are we currently talking about margarita flavors?" And I can see why. That's quite a funny one.
You know what? Some of these colors actually, kind of do remind me of a margarita for sure.
I mean, the names are, yeah, you could go to a bar and
yeah,
easily
like a
order
wild
pair.
rose margarita.
Mm.
I've had a, like a wild hibiscus sangria, not sangria, wild hibiscus margarita, and that kind of reminds me of the wild rose swatch.
Nice. These are good names. I mean, to be fair, I haven't heard these kind of names before, so it's quite a nice, quite a nice collection.
Yeah. So we'll I'll start, you know, putting together the palette from our preliminary color palette here.
Okay.
That we will use for Remi Gold's branding.
Nice.
So this is just, I believe this one's just eggshell. So I'm just going to name this eggshell.
And whilst you're doing that, we've got a, so yeah, I mean, Anne made a good point. He said, how do we find complementary colors on Illustrator? And then, yeah, Cody just supplied him with a lovely color wheel. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, you can see on the screen now, we've got a lot of nice sort of different toned down versions, colors that complement each other. So it's a nice color palette that Whitney's working with. So yeah. Quite nice.
And you have a lot to choose from, and you have a lot to explore. That's why I like to have like lots of colors that I'm exploring during the preliminary stages, because it's just, yeah, it's just easier. At least for me, it makes my job go a lot smoother, and it helps me like, especially when I go into the presentation phase, it just helps me like figure out like what colors like work best, like, you know, and how is this color making like me feel? Like, is it, you know,
it's almost like fonts as well, right?
Yeah. Are we targeting all the, you know, all the, you know, feelings that we want to go for?
No, that's a good point. I think it's, yeah, like you're sort of saying, like with color palettes, it's almost like selecting fonts as well. There's so many different options out there, right? And it's just, yeah, it kind of obviously depends on what works for the brand and you know, whether it's going to communicate well to the audience. But again, it's so subjective as well, right? One person could love it, one person it's yeah, trying to design a color for the mass is it's always tricky, but yeah, we'll get there eventually. Yeah.
See, like in these like two colors, they just look so good together, like the pale peach and like the honey peach. Just anything with that peach undertone is just gonna like complement really, really well.
It's quite nice.
I always do. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go for it, please.
I was gonna say that's another like driven, like kind of helps me choose colors too. Is like the undertones of the colors. Is like, is this undertone is gonna fit with the undertone of another palette, like another swatch? So it kind of helps me, you know, pick out the colors as well too, or like finalize them.
That's a good point.
If that makes sense. I feel like that didn't really
totally.
Sense.
No, I totally get it. And actually, Cody made a very good point, and I can see how that relates now. So those first three colors in the new palette look a bit like Napoleon ice cream.
It does. It does, and that's like my favorite ice cream flavor.
There we go. Subconsciously doing it, and I didn't realize.
I know, right? It's so crazy how that works. Yeah. Like how our minds like subconsciously do things.
It's probably what we have for Christmas pudding, right? I don't know. Like maybe we just it's coming back into the new year we're working with. So again, just for audience, for you know, a massive. If you've just joined us, by all means, and you're sort of seeing us talk about Napoleon ice cream, thinking, what the hell is going on? We're in the process of exploring the different color palettes. We have the lovely Whitney Kerney, a brand designer, and she's doing a refresh identity for Remi Gold, which is a floral studio. So a massive welcome if you've just joined. And yeah, you can see a lovely color palette which we've got here to work with. So any questions you guys might have related to branding, we're getting to Whitney's design process, or even just her as an individual, please put them in the chat, and I will share them directly with her while she's creating Napoleon ice cream. It's all good.
And then Chintz Rose. I love this color. I can't pronounce the name, but we're gonna.
Chintz Rose. It's interesting. I just and this is not a plug. Well, weirdly it is, but it's not in the same way. So I just done my website and I used that kind of like eggshell background, and it's weird because it's almost like you don't want to use white because it's a bit plain, but when you use off-white, it's like a nice, because it works with any sort of image on top, right? You can
it makes it gives it a nice rich color, or like a nice rich feel. Like I can't explain it. Like I know exactly what you mean though. Like I can't explain it, but it's just like having that nice like eggshell color, or like that nice off-white
makes a big difference.
Yeah, totally. It's a game changer. I know when I have some clients, they're like, I just want to use white. I'm like, no, but white is so harsh. I'm like always like telling my clients like, no, we need to have maybe like an off-white or something when it comes like at least a background color.
No, very good point.
Because white, I mean, I love white. White looks great with certain elements, but I feel like with like a white background, like on certain things, like I just feel like it's just too harsh. I mean, on a website, obviously it looks fine, but like on like a graphic, like I'm just like, I feel like it's too harsh.
Well, even like with furniture, right, as well. Like, because I've seen on your website and checking out a lot of your work, it's even got you know, kind of like floral tone, like color palette. But there seems to be, even when you go on your website, which is a beautiful website, you've got that kind of distinctive style, and it never seems to be like a solid white. It's always like a tone version of like a solid.
Even
which
in
is
my
quite
website,
nice.
let me see, like.
We've got a lovely question actually. I'll let you.
Okay.
From Clever actually. Well, two actually. One from Clever and one from David. So first one being from Clever. How concerned are you with the gamuts at this point? Are you going for online, print, or other at this time?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure. Maybe it's me. I don't know what gamuts.
No, I think I was like distracted for a second. So
sorry, it's shiny things. It's okay. So again, I think perhaps, and tell me if I'm wrong, Clever Fontanis, but I think it's the idea of you know, kind of what will be your output in terms of what you're doing now. Will you be working towards print? Would it be online for the final deliverable? That's what I assume you're saying, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, it'll be like, I mean, a lot of it will obviously live in digital, but like far as their packaging and collateral items, obviously that will be printed. So of course these colors will live in print form with like a thank you card or like a patch. I think we designed like stickers for Remi Gold, a patch, a tote bag, and a thank you card. So of course the colors will live in tangible items through that. If that answers your questions, I'm not sure if I'm answering it correctly.
No, we've actually got, and this is why it's quite nice to have the chat, because we can get this a few helping points. So he's mentioned, so gammons means the RGB color space versus the CMYK or spot colors. So I feel like that answers the question. And we've got David who said, and this perhaps is relating to, you know, with your freelancing and what you do as well, and perhaps with this one, in terms of pricing, how do you kind of approach, which is always it's always a sensitive one with certain, you never really know. It's like a gray area with some clients and freelance, but it's an important one, right, to discuss. But you know, how do you go about approaching you know, agreeing on a sort of set price in terms of your process? That's from David.
I feel like I'm still kind of like adjusting like my packaging pricing, but I kind of based off of like my time, and like kind of, and I also too like how, like, where is this logo going to be displayed, like how much of return investment are they going to get off of this? Like I always try to kind of, but I think like the main thing is kind of like my time, because it's like you got to think like a full brand identity with probably even the packaging and collateral and like website, you're probably going to look at like a 6 to 8 month project. So it's just like, how are you going to pay yourself for like for 6 to 8 months? So I always look at it like that. And it's always, like I said, it's always an evolving like process trying to like price yourself. And I'm still trying to find like, I mean, I'm pretty like happy with where I'm at with it, but I know like I know where I could be. But it's just like, I think like getting like kind of shifting your mindset around that, like, you know, like that's charging your worth and, you know, things of that nature, if that makes sense. It's so like really money is such a tricky, like pricing yourself is so tricky, and it's so like, it's like, you know, I feel like I'm always like, that's like an ever evolving like thing for me. It's like I'm always adjusting my packaging prices.
I think so. You made a good point, because it's, I mean, even with my line of work as a freelancer, even when I give talks with students, it's always that first question, like, how do I price? What do I charge? And I always find it's up against time versus pay, right? And it's almost like, there's nothing worse than plucking a number out of the air, and when you're expected to deliver at that level, you don't. So it's almost like being true to yourself by time management, you know, doing your research as well, and checking out, you know, other platforms that might perhaps, you know, show examples of what you could be charging based on your skill set. There's a whole process in terms of just plucking a number out of the air. So I totally agree.
I think like doing your research and like kind of like obviously charging your worth when it comes to like the time that you're going to be putting into that project. I think it's important. And also, I mean, even ask like, you know, friends that are maybe in like designer friends that are in that space, that kind of have maybe a little bit more experience under their belt, and see, you know, try to see if you can pick their brain or pay them to pick their brain, and, you know, and have them, you know, give you some advice on it. I mean, it's just something that I'm kind of in the process of doing, like, as far as like increasing my prices and like start charging like, you know, what, you know, I probably should be charging. But it's always a process. It's always going to change, like no matter like how many years in business that you are in, your pricing is always going to change.
I think that's good. And you made a really good point, because I mean, there's something I did when I officially went freelance last year, was that I had a good friend of mine who's been freelancing for years, and I just had a Zoom about an hour and we just picked his brains. And it's nice when you've got, say, a friend or family or someone you trust who's in the space, because one, they'll give you the real transparency of what it is to be a freelance, but then also you get an idea of what that space is like before you jump into it. And I guess you're going to make mistakes. You're going to find, you know, things that go wrong, but it's the whole part of the journey, right? And it's trying to like what works best for you as an individual. So
and like what you feel, if you feel good about like where you're at with your pricing, then, you know, or if like, I saw a thing and it was saying like, I can't remember who had posted it. One of my other designer friends, we were at lunch and she told me, she was saying that like, you know, when it's time to increase your prices when you are constantly being booked out. So that, I feel like that's a good kind of like a starting point to be like, okay, hey, like I am consistently booked out. I guess it is time to raise my prices. So that way, because I mean, the goal is obviously to book less clients and get paid more, because like you don't want to like work yourself to the bone, like, and I'm like, I feel like I'm like learning that now, because I'm like, now I'm like sick. You know. But it's just like you just love what you do for a living, so it's like all you want to do is work, so it's kind of hard. It's kind of like a catch-22.
Is that work like, but I mean, actually that's quite nice. It's going to lead me quite nicely one of the questions I wanted to ask you in terms of like your work-life balance, because it's, and maybe it goes into a bit of Marvel, but maybe not. It depends, because I know you like Marvel, depending on where this might go. But it's I guess it's that work life, but especially as a freelancer, and even during, you know, COVID and pandemic, and I guess maybe for some of the audience could be quite useful for them. Any tips that you might have in terms of balancing your work life with, you know, normal life balance as a freelancer, especially during this current world climate we're in now? How do you find that balance, and any tips that you could provide for our audience?
So I have a very strict morning routine. Like, I think, again, if I don't do, and that kind of goes back to like my ADHD brain, if like I don't do my morning routine, like I'm literally thrown off the whole entire, I will literally throw the whole day away. Like, I'm like, no, I'll just start over tomorrow. Like if I don't do my morning routine, I even do my morning routine when I'm traveling. Like, because it's like, if I don't, like, I feel like my day will be ruined. Like, so I think like having that morning routine. So I typically wake up around like 6:30. Sometimes I'll sleep until 7 because sometimes I'm tired.
Dreadful, Whitney. How dare you?
I know. So I usually wake up around like 6:30. I'll have like coffee. And during that time, like I'll journal, have like my time with the guy upstairs. And then like I'll kind of move into like maybe doing my emails while I'm drinking coffee, so I can get my emails knocked out in the morning and I don't have to worry about it.
Nice.
And then I kind of like, you know, I start getting ready for my day, and I don't sit down at my desk until about like 10. But I have like a very like in-depth morning routine. Like I wake up super early, have like my time to journal, drink my coffee, plan out anything like far as like content wise, like for like, you know, IG story or something, you know, depending on like how much time I have left or something. And then I kind of go into like, you know, getting cute for the day and like sitting at my desk. And then I usually stop work around like 5 or 6, sometimes 4 if I like get done with everything.
Treat yourself.
And then and then I go straight into, you know, I actually end up cleaning after I get off work, just because I feel like everything is messy, even though things aren't messy. It's just in my mind. It just cleaning helps me. Yeah, cleaning helps me like wind down.
Yeah.
So
it's important. You need that.
Yeah. So I'll like clean, and then I'll just kind of do like, you know, I just kind of wind down. I love watching TV. Yeah. So TV is something that I do to wind down. I'll definitely watch Marvel movies. Right now I'm really into catching up on like Chicago PD. So I'm like binge watching Chicago PD right now. So I haven't really been watching. No, I lied. I have been watching Marvel movies because all last week when I was like feeling kind of sick, like a lot worse than I do now, like I was watching, like I rewatched Shang-Chi, I watched Black Widow, and then I watched the new series Hawkeye. Like
We did promise ourselves, by the way, before we came on the, we wouldn't go too much because it's very easy for one thing I discussed. I realized quite quickly when I first met Whitney is that we both have a love for Marvel films. So it's quite nice that you mentioned that. But I know for those who might not like it, you should definitely keep it still branded related. And actually, we've got a nice.
Yeah, no Spider-Man spoilers, please.
Oh, you should have mentioned that. It's going to come out now in full
vengeance. I
know. We've got a lovely question from Can, and he said, what are the most important steps whilst doing a brand design? So I guess we're kind of in that process now, but it's what do you kind of, in terms of like a streamlined version, would you say?
That's a very, very good question. And I was literally about to talk about that in like my next little like phase. But so I like the way my ADHD brain works, tackling the smaller items of a brand identity first, such as like the colors and like the font suite, and leaving the more in-depth items like the logos for last makes my workflow go a lot smoother. I just find that it allows me a lot more time to focus on the logo concept since you have like a full suite. Like you got your primary, you got your secondary, you got potentially like your alternative, you got your brand marks, you got your sub marks, you have like a lot of different moving parts in a logo suite. So I feel like having more time to focus on that helps me and makes my process go a lot smoother. So like at the beginning stages of every project, obviously, like I do the brand strategy. And then from there, like I go into, once like, of course, the brand strategy is approved off of, I then go into like the design process. But I always start gathering like layout and font inspiration first before I do like logos. I feel like having like time to do the logos is so important, at least for me. Like I know most designers start with logos first, which is really amazing. But for me, I start with logos last. That's why we'll be tackling logos tomorrow.
No, I get it. It's what works for you, right? I think, I mean, that's the beauty of even like with Adobe Live and a lot of streams we do, it's seeing that process of how everyone works differently. If everyone worked the same, it would be boring, right? And it's nice to kind of see what works.
Yeah, it's so cool to see like different processes, but like for me, like it might be completely backwards, but it works for me. Like I just know that like the logos are going to probably be like, I mean, the patterns are actually the last thing that I do, but the logos is pretty much like, I know that's going to take the bulk of my time. So like tackling like, the colors and like the fonts like first, like so I can get those out of the way. And I can focus more on like the big bulk items like the logos. It helps my process go a lot smoother.
I like that. Yeah. And you mentioned when you just said the word even backwards in terms of it's funny because I used to have a creative director when I was a junior, and he used to say to me when I had like a bit of a mind blank or creative block with certain things, he said, think of like a really bad design or bad fit and work backwards from it. And it's almost like giving yourself the idea of just think outlandish and then just limit it back and actually refine it. And in opposed to trying to think of the best thing straight away. So even going to that process stage, everyone's got their own different processes, but I think it's just trying to be more, researching, doing a bit more, what's out there and have an understanding of how people will accept it. So
and I know they always used to say too, like when you're trying to tackle like your to-do list, like do the easy items first, like tackle those first. Or I heard that, and then I hear also like tackle the harder items first. But for me, like tackling the easy items makes more sense to my ADHD brain. Not easier, because obviously developing a color palette and figuring out a font like suite is it can be very complex, but like I feel like it's not as time consuming as like developing a full logo suite to present to a client.
Oh, I get that totally. It'd be good to know as well, like those in the chat, like what's your design process, or even just what do you kind of do in terms of like, your structure? Do you have like a sort of regime or routine that you kind of do in terms of when you design, if you're a freelance or in the working environment? It'd be good to know, everyone's process and thoughts. And again, we'll share that with Whitney. I'm sure she'd love to hear it as well. And I can see as well, we've got Caroline who's just joined us. So happy New Year and welcome.
Happy New
and
Year,
again,
Caroline.
Happy New Year, good vibes all together, and a massive welcome for joining us today in Adobe Live.
So these are the colors, y'all. So this is what we've streamlined down. And if you reference it back to the mood board, you can kind of see, let me just kind of carry this over here so we can kind of see here. But yeah, so you can kind of see like the mood board kind of embodies this color palette.
It's like liquid form of like everything there is just like it's been blended into like a nice solid palette for it. I love that.
But yeah, cool. So now that we have like a streamlined color palette, I want to know, what are people's favorite?
I don't know if, well, I mean, you let me know, Cody, because it depends on how many we can write in there. But I mean,
maybe like pick 4 or.
Can you zoom in a little bit? There we go. We can see them there. So let's pick 4 actually. Let's pick out what's your favorite. Should we do 2 each? And that way we can break it down. If you pick your favorite 2, I'll pick my favorite 2, and then we can put it in the chat, and then we can do like a poll. What 2 are you liking?
Okay, so I love Wild Rose, and I'll go ahead and do the Pale Peach. Wild Rose and Pale Peach. Yeah.
Okay, I am gonna go for only because I had this in my food tonight, sage. I do like sage.
That sounds nice.
I like blush actually. Blush is.
I know blush is like that's like. That's actually one of my brain colors. So
what I've done is I've put it in the chat, and hopefully we will do a little poll based on those 4, and then we'll see what everyone's feeling. So whilst that's kind of in the background, what was the next, would you say, sort of section that we would work on whilst people are doing the sort of poll?
So of course, after I get done with the like the colors, I move into like kind of developing out a few different like font sets. So I always like begin gathering like layout and font inspiration first. So I always develop out like, a few font suite options that I'll finalize later on. And I love to pull inspiration from like Typewolf or You Work for Them. So I would also love to see like if there's any other like designers in the chat to see like where they pull like font inspiration from. Those are just like 2 of the websites that I pull.
The millions that are out there, right?
Yeah, I know,
like
there's so many.
There's a lot. There's
those
a lot.
Are like the 2 main ones. Typewolf is actually like probably like the main one I'm on all the time. But I would love to know like what other people.
I mean, you can't leave out Adobe Font as well. We've got Adobe Font.
Oh my God, yes, Adobe Font, yes.
That is
I'm always on
one.
Adobe Font too, like.
That is. I'm not just saying that is a strong collection of different fonts there too.
Yeah, and there's actually like these are actually Adobe fonts. So Century Gothic, Futura, PT, Poppins. So I love incorporating Adobe fonts in my like like the brand fonts, because it's just like especially if like if they're like using like Squarespace, it's just, I feel like sometimes it's easier for the client to have like a font from, that's easier. So that way they don't have to do, like, it's like less coding.
No, I totally get that. We've got it's actually a nice sort of point which Caroline's mentioned. It's a little bit, I think I can relate to that in terms of my own profession, but she said, for branding, I like to understand my client's background, general taste, brand message, mission and value. Then I start sketching logos based on the results of the research.
Yeah.
Do you do that? I mean, I'm a bit old school, but I like to, before I jump on any design program, I always have Moleskine pencil to paper.
Yeah.
Do you do a bit of drawing and stamping?
I actually don't do any pen to paper. I don't know what it is, but I think like, I just like my brain, I do sometimes. It just depends. I guess depends on like the project. But I don't do it often. I'm more of like the screen girl. I'll do some like on my iPad, like with the pencil.
And we're doing a little bit. I mean, we won't say too much. I know we've got that sort of in the pipeline, don't we? Which is quite exciting to.
Yeah, but as far as like logos, like sketching it out pen to paper, I absolutely love that people do that. Like some designers do that. Like I just can't. Like personally, like it's just like I don't know if I just get. I'm gonna blame it on my ADHD brain. I think it's just like it doesn't like work for me, I guess. So I just kind of do everything just in
on the digital,
in the digital realm.
Well, I guess as well, I always find like with freelance, it depends if you had the luxury of time as well, because obviously we're up against deadlines and sometimes you may have to just jump straight onto the computer. But when time is on my side, which is rare, I mean, I will take my book and like we got like a lake nearby, so like we just chill there and pen to paper. Or even like, I know it's a bit weird to do, but I used to do a lot of drawing as a kid, like people watching and drawing. Do you ever do much as a child, like growing up? Did you do much drawing, or is
I
it just?
did. I did. My
Yeah?
dad's an artist, so I kind of was adapted
Oh,
to that very early on in my life. He's like a
nice.
painter and artist, so he was always drawing or painting or doing something. So I did do a lot of drawing and just arts and crafts in general. And then my grandma was she's an artist too, so she used to have like a ceramic shop. So I was always dabbling into something. So yeah, but
I love
now that
that.
like I do it for a living, like I don't really do much pen to paper when it comes to like
Yeah.
sketching out ideas like far as logos go. I do
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's
It sounds
very
good. Something
rare.
got a very like creative family. Like I can see from the background with your dad and grandma. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very I feel like I'm just like I'm like used to like that, I guess,
Mm,
space, being in that space for so long, like just having like my dad as an artist and my grandma as an artist. It's just like I don't know anything else.
It's one of those one I always find as well, like even for those, in the chat and in our audience, it's some people in the space where naturally they're just involved with design, whether it's brothers or sisters or older or friends or family. But sometimes you might just be not even from a design background at all, and you're just curious. And I think it's
Yeah.
even today, like this is a nice session because you're learning about you and your
Yeah.
process. So, there's a lot of different ways people kind of find their way or end up being a creative from different routes depending on their life circumstances. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you can
quite cool.
tap into, like, everyone is creative. Like you can tap into it at any
Mm.
time. You just have to like put in, you just have to put in the work.
I always feel
Um
like I may be a bit biased because obviously we're both creators, but I generally believe like we all start off as whether it's painting when you're like a baby or a
yeah,
toddler, like and it's
finger
almost like
painting.
yeah, exactly, even school, and
Yeah.
then some people decide to continue that route, and some people then decide not to, and
Yeah, they're
that's
like,
okay, and
oh, it's
it's
not
just
for me. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we all
No,
start off
that's a
somewhere.
very good point. That's a very good point. I never really thought about it like that, but that's definitely very,
Mm.
now that I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah. Because you always start, like, even like in kindergarten, you have your arts and
Yeah,
crafts like
totally.
corner, and like some people, like, because you usually grow up with like the people that you go to kindergarten with, typically, at
Mm.
least I did. And then, and like you just see like some people like end up staying in the artist like industry, and then some like end up just like
They drift off.
going down
Yeah.
sports or something, which I actually used to play sports. I used to play softball, and that was like my dream
Okay.
growing up.
Okay.
I
There we
wanted to
go.
play in the Olympics, but I ended up getting tendonitis in both of my knees at age 16. So my dad made me quit, and I was like, "You're ruining my dream!" Like I was devastated. Like,
We can do some branding for like a softball team. I'm just trying to link
oh
it
my gosh,
back in now. Like,
I don't think I'll ever
okay.
have I'll ever do branding for a sports
Okay.
like a sports company. It's not me anymore.
I was actually curious because that's actually one of the questions I was going to ask, and it'd be good to know what everyone else's thoughts in terms of like, what's your kind of favorite brands or brands that you tend to aspire to, or you basically just like their ethos and you like their styles, or any brands? And by all means in the chat, put down your favorite brands that you like. What do you like, Whitney, in terms of like your style in a brand?
Like far as like kind of like what space they're in, like beauty or.
Yeah, or I mean, any kind of, whether it could be food packaging, it could be, any sort of, just space in terms of branding and how they've kind of worked with it and, work with the audience, color, font type. Is there any sort of brands that stick out to you that just, they do it really well, basically, in terms
Ooh,
of how
oh
they
my gosh,
operate?
there's so many.
It's a big question, I know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many. There's this, Glossier, obviously.
Okay.
Glossier does such a phenomenal job with their branding. I will actually say like the Kardashian Beauty, like they do a phenomenal job with their branding as well too. There is this beauty brand, I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly, but it's like Facile or Facile, like
It's
F-A
Versace.
something like
Okay.
Facile or something. But I feel like I just recently discovered them because I think I was like searching for something that they sell. And the algorithm, it just pops up. And I ended up falling in love with their branding and just like everything, like how they basically portray themselves on like social. Like I just love it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like so many, but that's just to name a few.
I mean, it's funny. I always find like, and I don't know, I mean, it's maybe during this whole period of like world climate and, you know, going to the supermarket more. And like one thing I absolutely love is like when you get bespoke beer packaging, like when you, even if it's like, I'm going to give away too much stuff now, but like it's the idea of like going in, I'm not an alcoholic by the way, but it's just the idea of going into and seeing the different kind of, you know, brands that kind of just starting out. And it's just like almost like young brands in opposed to, you know, established, fully established brands.
I love that. And I love seeing like the young brands like come out and they're like in Nordstrom and, or like, you know, like the beauty brands, because I'm like in that space as usually who I'm branding, or floral. I love like designing floral companies too. Obviously Remi Gold. But yeah, I love seeing them like on the shelves. I'm like, look at them. Like, it's just like, it's such a, like, it's like literally such a proud moment for like any brand designer to see like your client, like, you know, getting their return on investment for one of their branding. And then like just seeing it out in like the real world and like, you know, seeing that like the strategy that we put in place is like, you know, making them, or it's like, you know, they're getting growth from it. It's just like such a beautiful thing and humbling experience to see.
You see the growth. I love that. And I feel like creatives are quite, it's interesting because we do nitpick it. I mean, it's just in our DNA, I guess.
Oh my gosh,
like,
I pick out everything.
You see a logo. It's so hard, right, not to dissect it and just be like, that alignment's not right, or whether the color swatch is
I don't do that with other. I actually do. I feel like I do that with myself. Like, I'm like, I don't know. But like with others, I'm like, that is so good. Like, I don't know what it is. Like when I see someone else's work, I'm just like, that is so good. Like, I just feel like a little cheerleader. But like with my own work, I'm so like, no, the alignment, like, it's just, you know, basically back to what you were saying.
I do like brands like when they say if they commission an illustrator, or like they kind of do things that are a bit, maybe not necessarily, it goes against the grain. So it's not always following the trend. I do like, my brain kind of likes that, or even if they collaborate and they work with an illustrator or maybe a different style of photography, I think that's quite nice because it's, I think for me, because I'm going into the whole word of collaboration, which I think is quite cool.
I'm like obsessed with like following designers that don't have the same style as me. Like, I'm just like, you are too cool. Like, you are so, I'm like so like blown away by like other designers that have like moody styles. I'm just like, that is so freaking cool, because it's like, that's like so far from my style that like, it just blows me away. And I'm just like, it's so in awe of just like people's talents. I'm just like, you know, but I'm always dissecting my own work though. Like, but with others, I'm like, oh, that is so good. I feel like a little cheerleader. But with my own work, I'm like, oh, like, you know, you'll like create something and then you'll look back at it like a few days later, like, oh no, this doesn't look good at all. Like,
the old me is just like, well, to be fair, I mean, the comments have been absolutely like all positive. So like everyone's, you know, mini cheerleaders for your hair. So it's all good. Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a little cheerleader at heart, even though I wasn't a cheerleader, but.
No, it's all good. It's all positive energy. And actually, and that's a really good point. That's actually a really good brand. Ben & Jerry's. That's getting me hungry.
Yes,
now,
Ben & Jerry's is a good brand.
Yeah, definitely. You said from.
I hear that one a lot. Actually, speaking of Ben & Jerry's, when Twyla, the owner of Remi Gold, was filling out her branding questionnaire, one of the brands that appealed to her was Ben & Jerry's. So like she just loves everything Ben & Jerry's. Like she just loves like what they stand for, like how, you know, just how they portray themselves. Like that was like one of the brands that inspired her. Like, because in my branding questionnaire, I always like, what brands inspire you? You know, because I always like to know. And Ben & Jerry's is one of those.
That would be such a cool brand to work. I didn't even think, my brain didn't even go in that space of Ben & Jerry's, but it's thanks for putting that comment out, because that's
I know the color. I mean, the first like two little rows of colors of ice cream. I actually branded an ice cream company back in design school. I didn't really like it, but
did you get like free ice cream from the client, or was it not like kind of?
No, I think it was just like a mock. I think it was like a mock client, like just like for the class or something. But I used to hate the work that the instructor would like give you, be like, you got to design this. And I'm like, I'm not inspired. Like I just never resonated with any of the work. I'm like, I don't want to. So I felt like a procrastinator with my work. I mean, I managed, I got it done. I ended up getting good. I always had good grades, but I was just like super procrastinating because it's just like, I didn't resonate with like the work.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. I mean, we've kind of touched on before. You gotta We do. It's tricky because obviously as designers, you might find yourself working on something which you don't necessarily have a connection with. And unfortunately, it's just that our line of work, wherever it's say full time, that's not cutting it for you. But when you do find, whether it's freelance or even with an agency, work that you generally are invested in, like that you feel like you can connect with it, naturally by default, I'd almost assume you'd have your best work.
Yeah. And your work just stands out. Like it just like shines. Like like your process goes so much smoother and a lot faster. Like you just are like literally, it's like you feel like you're on a roll. Like with Remi Gold, like I was just like hashing out logos. I was like, bam, bam, bam. Like I just felt so passionate about it. Like, and it's just like, you know, that's just like the difference of like working for like a client that don't really resonate with versus like working with a client that you are like you can resonate with or that you are passionate about. Like florals, like I'm just obsessed with. I just love everything that Remi Gold stand for. Like I love it, and they're like literally like the best women.
I was gonna say I have no doubt you'll have like some floral brands, you know, after your Adobe stream that will be coming and knocking on your door.
Yeah,
so
I've been lucky to design 3 floral brands this year. And Remi Gold was like my last one of 2021. Nice. So yeah, it's been such a joy.
That's amazing.
I always like when floral companies like, you know, are in my submission form, I'm like, yes, let's please work together.
I love that. I was gonna say so we're about sort of 20 minutes. I mean, I can't believe how quickly time has kind of gone by, but we're about like 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so towards wrapping up. But again, for some people who have just joined in, potentially, you know, massive welcome again, and we're quite, you know, 25 minutes all towards the ends, but we are in the process at the moment now of just looking at a few different fonts, which we've just looked at some colors options as well. And today we have the amazing brand designer and my mind blank there. Whitney Kerney, of course.
I know mine blank too. I'm like, wait.
Whitney Kerney, and she's in the process of basically brand identity for Remi Gold, which are Austin-based Floral Studio. So welcome if you've just joined us. And yeah, we're about 25 minutes or so, Whitney, into the process until we're sort of wrapping up. So is there any sort of parts you want to sort of showcase yet before we sort of 25 minutes or so?
Yeah, so with the fonts, I just mainly, like I said, I usually kind of, I can spend like a whole day like researching fonts and like finding fonts that I want to potentially use for like the branding. But these are the 3 ones that I kind of put together for like this presentation or this stream. So for like the first, so like my goal for like the typography combination was just to, you know, have that high-end modern and feminine feel, you know, to give off that chic romantic feeling that we've been trying to, you know, target throughout this branding process. So for like the first set, we have like a subheading of like Century Gothic, which is Adobe font.
Nice.
And then I believe it's a Google font too. If I don't know, I might be mistaken. It might be a Google font or Adobe font. But either way, it is available. Pretty easy to get a hold of. And then a heading font. Nice and clean. Yeah, I love it. This one actually, this was actually a pre-existing brand font that Remi Gold had that they were loving. So I wanted to kind of attempt to use it to see like if it'll pair well or kind of give off that feel that we were wanting for her branding or for their branding. And then so we have a heading font of Canela, which is honestly one of my personal favorites. I love Canela.
It's a lovely font, really nice.
And then this one is in light. This is just like the lightweight.
What different weights do they have available for just like, is it like...
I think I only had the light one installed, but they have thin, they have light, they have regular, you know, I think it goes up until, I think it goes up to bold, I think. And then we have this nice little accent font, California palm script, which I love. So this would be great just to kind of like reference the kind of like how to stylize. So like here, like we have it like here where it just says for the golden. So it'd just be a nice little accent complementary font to have like a little pop to, you know, certain graphics and things or like to use as kind of like elements within like the website or packaging and things like that. And then so like the second set is like a subheading of Futura PT, which is an Adobe font. And then we have, we have Futura. That's how you pronounce it.
I always think like H Ventura, but Ventura, yeah, Ventura.
Sure. I'm like, I
There we go.
cannot pronounce these names. And then we have a heading font. I want to say Recif.
Size? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Recif.
Potato,
Yeah,
whatever.
I
No one
know,
says
right?
potato. Yeah.
But yeah, and I just love how like the kind of like the arches of these of this lettering is too. And then the same California palm script. And then we have for the third set, like the subheading of Poppins, which I love. I actually really love certain like letters and like glyphs of like the Poppin. Like I love the and sign of Poppins. So I would like once we get into like day 2, depending on how many logos we can develop out, I probably end up using the and sign in Poppins.
I love that, the emphasis.
Like,
Yeah, it'd be good to know as well. Like for that, I mean, this is a lot more streamlined options in terms of the color palettes for the poll. But maybe like you guys in the audio in the chat, put in what you like in terms of your favorites, whether it's Century Gothic, Futura PT, or Poppins. Like, what are you guys feeling?
Yeah, what set are y'all leaning more towards?
I love it's weird because I probably would use Poppins more with some of my. I like when you increase the leading in between as well, because one of those fonts where you could space out the leading really nicely for like typesetting as well. I'm gonna go into editorial mode now, but yeah.
I know. I'm like, I just threw this together. It's probably not even.
I'm not. No one's judging, honestly.
Like, it's probably not even like. I'm not even probably using the design principles correctly, but I just
it's popping off the page, so it's all good. See what I did there? There we go.
Yeah. So, and then like for the third set, it's like Poppins as the subheading, and then Reckless as the heading, and then of course California Palm script as like the accent. And just for like this case, we will use like the heading font as like a body paragraph font. So let's see how these would look like. So for instance, like this is like the Canella. This is Century Gothic, and like the Century Gothic as like a body paragraph, and then you can see the accent font. So let's see how the other ones look. Let me see if I can.
You can zoom in just a smidge, just so we can see everything in its entirety.
Let me make this a little bigger too.
There's another reason why I love Illustrator as well. You just have that flexibility, right, of just increasing.
I know.
Yeah, it's nice.
And I wish I could have like just one huge artwork.
That could be the future, right? Of like design, like almost like Matrix style.
Like one big sketch pad.
It'd be amazing.
So this is obvious. This is my favorite here. I just feel like it has like a nice little bones to it. And I think it kind of executes everything that we want to accomplish with like the overall brand voice of Remi Gold. Again, this is like Century Gothic, Canella Light, Century Gothic, and then the California Palms. But let's see how the other ones look too.
It's always, that in itself is an art in itself, trying to, when you've got say there's always that rule of thumb of how many fonts do you use, right, depending on what it is, but trying to get the right font for say a title and body copy, there's a process in itself
to have it like feel like what you want it to feel, but yeah, so this is like Futura PT. So it's pretty similar. It's just that the letters are a little skinnier than Century Gothic, but they are pretty similar. But they're a little bit more condensed, like the lettering. But yeah, so that's Futura PT. Oh, and then let me change this.
It's interesting because you always get sometimes fonts where they look good, but you can only have them for so many words, because otherwise it just looks like an absolute train crash depending on how many different ones. So like, it's one of those ones try and error, isn't it? When you're just trying different fonts.
Yeah, so this is Recif. And it's just like a trial font just so we can kind of play around with it. It might look too typewriter to me for Recif now that I'm seeing it kind of like typed out. And then let's see how Poppins looks.
Whenever I see like nice, elegant font as well, like laid out, especially the floral, the top title, you can even imagine like, again, I'm going to go into print mode a little bit, but when it's like embossed, if you have like nice embossed gold font, I can imagine that look really lovely on like a printed item.
That's what I love. I think that's why I think the Canela is making the most impact for me, because I feel like it's going to look best like in all different mediums, not just digital. Yeah. So I do love Reckless, but I think like I still feel like it might be too like typewriter-y, that feel. And I kind of wanted to keep it a little bit more chic. And
I like it.
And romantic. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let me, if people in the comments, if they have a favorite, I would love to know.
Yeah, we've got
which set they're kind of leaning more towards.
What are you guys feeling? I can see already we've got so Cody's feeling the Poppins font. And we've got Am saying I love Reckless. Poppins always seems to be a bit of a favorite, which is quite nice. And Am says, well, Futurist is everyone's favorite. So yeah,
of course. It's like oh my god,
a classic.
I could use that one for everything.
It is a classic.
And I love Poppins. We were kind of going back and forth between. So it was actually between Futura and Poppins, but then we ultimately landed on Century Gothic. Yeah.
And again, any questions you guys might have in terms of like, how Whitney has perhaps say her font selection or what the process is, put those questions in the chat and I can share them directly with Whitney. So it'd be good to know.
And again, this is probably not, I'm probably not following design principles. I kind of just threw this together for the stream, but you kind of get the idea of kind of like how the fonts kind of play well together. I've got a question
in terms of sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, in going back to working with the client and like understanding, their thoughts and especially with fonts as well, it's so subjective. How do you find, just quite curiously, like dealing with feedback and amends in terms of something that's so subjective as say like font selection or color palette? How do you there's no right or wrong answer to it, but from you personally, how do you find dealing with feedback and amends on it?
It's always, of course, like your work is always like, it is always a little nerve wracking when you send off your branding presentation to the client. I feel like I'm always like refreshing my project management app. Like, oh, did they respond yet? But I think just like having an open mind to their feedback, I think is beneficial in like not getting your feelings hurt if they don't like it. And I think also like maybe not responding instantly, like maybe taking maybe like 24 or 48 hours to kind of like dissect what their feedback is and then responding. So that way, like you just take everything in. That way you're not like, that way you're not like responding and maybe impulse. Like impulse or like in a defensive like voice maybe. But I think like I think that's why I also think like the branding presentation is so important, because I go really, really in detail with the branding presentation. I also have like the branding presentation here where it goes like really in detail. And I think like the more detail you go into, like it helps explain to the client like your design decisions. And it kind of eliminates or alleviates like pushback. It kind of, and I think also having like a one concept approach, because I do a one concept approach with like the branding presentation, I think that helps with that to like not overwhelm the client too. But yeah, I think having all of those kind of, working those all together, I think that like helps with like the feedback process. But it's never easy. It's never easy because it's like that, like your work is your baby, so it's just like, it's so hard to like give it off to the client and be like, it's like fingers. I've seen so many reels of like designers like creating like when they like send off the branding presentation and they're like real nervous and stuff. Like that's literally like that's real life. That's real life.
But I feel like it takes like, it's one of those ones where the more you do it and the more, even as a freelance work, you're 2 years in it, I'm 1 year in it, we're still fairly new. It's a process, right? I feel like you could be maybe 10 years into design, but you're still going to have people who might not like it or will love it. So it's very much a process, right? Of elimination. We've got some good questions, actually, a really good one from Ruth, and it's going back to your fonts, which is quite nice. So Ruth has asked, how do you organize your purchase of fonts in your computer? Do you add them on your font book system right away, or do you have a folder saved, sort of tucked away on your desktop or filed away nicely?
When I'm like at first when I do like font like research, I go through my bank that I currently have in my computer first, and kind of feel out like those kind of fonts first. But then like if I'm not really feeling what I have currently in my bank, like my font book, then I'll start like, going to Adobe fonts or going to like Typewhip, like those like, those website inspirations to start pulling inspiration. And then I'll usually download like a trial font. And like I'll usually have like a folder designated to those like particular fonts that I downloaded to keep everything a little bit more organized. So when I go to play around and I finalize, be like, okay, this is the font that I need to buy like the licensing for, like I have like, it's easy for me to grab it.
Point of reference, yeah.
Yeah, but I do, I mean, obviously you have to like download the font to your font book to play around with it in Illustrator. But yeah, as far as like how I start, it's like I usually kind of go through like my like the bank that I already have first and see kind of how I'm feeling. If I'm not really liking anything that I have, then that's when I go to outside sources.
I can dig that. It's one of those ones. I almost feel like most designers, it's nice. You almost have like your little holy grail of whether it's mock-ups, font selection. Without geeking out too much, I have like a whole folder on just textures. I love adding a texture on anything. So and like having it's nice to have like a little point of reference. So you can.
I don't really have it on my computer. I have it in like a Dropbox folder because I try not to keep too much on my computer, or have it on like an external hard drive. Yeah. Because it can get. I mean, you already know, like it can get a little messy, and our computer, it can get real, like the storage can get real, like, stiff after a while.
I feel like we should never judge because it's one of those ones where, I mean, my fiance will hate me for saying it, but even when you have like your desktop where you've got loads of things scattered around, I have a freak out where I have to do a quick command A and just like nicely.
Yeah, I have to do the same. Like it's just like insane. And then like a full brand design day, like a full design day, like it looks like my computer has chickenpox. Like it literally is like so many things like dragged to the desktop. Like it's just, there's like literally no method to the madness. Like there's not, as organized as I try to be, like, I feel like it's inevitable.
You got to say like there's a method to the madness. It's like, it doesn't work for someone else, but for you, you know exactly where you're.
You just like, feel, I just feel like as organized as I try to be, like when you're in the flow, it's like organization goes out the door. Like you just are like trying to move, like you're in the groove,
Totally. It's funny. I used to have like a creative director I used to work with, and he literally instilled in my brain from a junior, and I can't wing it off now until now this age, but it's pretty much how you have a project and you save it by each folder, even if it's like Illustrator, InDesign, Illustrator, export, assets, it has to be all named. And my brain now, it has to be intrigued in that way. Otherwise I just can't. It's weird.
No, I do name things, but when I'm in the groove of it, it's organization definitely goes out the door. Well, in the design process, usually when I'm like kind of like in the exploration phase and research phase, like I'm a little bit more organized during that phase because it's like I have to be, because it's like when I get to the design part, like I have to have a little bit more organization. You
got to find where stuff is. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like... But once I start designing, and like I go back to my computer the next day, I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? It's like a bomb went off.
Like an internal bomb. I think Ruth has just said as well, it can get messy. It's a messy process, but I feel like, which is actually quite nice, because when it's like, when you have downtime period, whether it's Christmas or week, holidays, it's that moment where you can just almost do like life admin or just like work admin, where it's just tidying up all your desktops, your hard drives, and you've got to set time for that, I find.
Oh my God, you do.
Just go crazy.
But then it's like if you have ADHD, you like procrastinate until your computer is like overloaded, and then you're like,
you're both procrastinating the computer and yourself. We've got Amy, who's mentioned, so going back to the kind of the amends and feedback question, how many revisions do you allow for your clients? I
allow like 2 to 3. I usually don't get that far. I have been very lucky that I don't have too many revisions. So if I do, it's usually like 1 revision, and then we nail it. But I usually allow like 2 to 3, given the circumstances, but that's quite a lot. But I think like moving into the year, I'll probably only allow like 2 revions.
And
then after the 2 to 3 revisions, there would be like, a small revision fee, after that. But usually, like I said, like I think going back to like the branding presentation, I think it's very imperative for you to really take the time to explain your design decisions, because that helps like you not have as many revisions in the long run, because your client gets it, your client understands like your design decisions, your client like sees like the point of view of the brand identity, like they see it, they see the vision, so they're just like, okay, no, I don't need any revisions, this is perfect. Those are like the best. that's like a little mini win, isn't it, when you get a client that's like, yeah, it's cool, it's like, but are you sure? Like you're almost questioning sometimes how, like, why is it so quick and easy? But yeah, I've been very blessed that I don't have too many revisions when it comes to my branding clients. Nice. But when I do, it's usually like one revision or so. I've had maybe like two rounds of revisions one time. But it was only like on one thing. It wasn't like the full like brand identity. It was probably like maybe just tweaking the logo a little bit or something.
No, I get that. Yeah. I get that. Steve made and it's a good point as well. So he said, depends on the system of fonts. The Max font book does a great job sorting them out, and you can make your own folders too. Super easy to install.
You know what? I did not know that. Oh my gosh, I learned something new every day.
There we go. It's sharing is caring. So
yeah, no,
thank you for those gems, Steve.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot that I don't know when it comes to technology. So that is like really amazing that, they mentioned that.
Indeed. And Jubiet, I hope I'm again saying it correctly. He said and it's a funny one. It is necessary to clean the desktop after work is approved. So it's almost like you can allow yourself that time because you're in the flow of it. But once it's done, there's no excuses.
I know. Okay, I hear you. I get it. I know it's no excuse.
Oh no, but I feel like that's for. I mean, we're all like, we're guilty.
No, I will say I'm pretty good. Like once the project is done, or once I've sent off the branding presentation, I clean up almost instantly. So I'm pretty good with that. That part. Like but during the design process, it's like my computer
it's
has
the method to
pops.
the madness. I love that. It's the method to the madness. No, I get that totally. So I mean, those fonts you've picked out are quite a nice selection. Were there any more that were just those three that you were happy with?
These are the main ones that I kind of already had. Like luckily when I was going through like the branding questionnaire, and I like after my discovery call with Remi Gold, I kind of already had an idea what fonts I wanted to use. So I didn't spend too much time researching the fonts, but these were the main ones that I kept like envisioning in my head when I was talking to Twyla. These are the ones I played around with, and ultimately this set is what I ended up on.
Nice.
Yeah. I initially had Futura PT, but then we ended up going with Century Gothic. Yeah.
Nice, classic favorite. We've got a question actually from and I feel like we could both answer because this is I'd love to know your thoughts on it first as well. So Can said, would you work on a project you are not interested in?
I would not do that anymore. I have in the past, like when I first started out, and I just find that it's too stressful, and then you just end up like in my case, like I end up procrastinating because I don't want to start on it because I'm not passionate about it. But when you first start out, you're like, I need the money, so it's like you just bring on the project, and you're not passionate about that particular that project. So I feel like it's just like it causes unnecessary stress. So it's like I definitely won't do that. I don't do that anymore. I have definitely built up my no belt. I say no a lot.
I love that. That's an interesting. From my side, I can touch on exactly what you said before, where it's just, it depends on your life situation, right? You might get a project where, we've got realities of life, whether it's mortgage or whatever is happening, you've got to pay bills, right?
Life is expensive for real. Like
it is. And when you're freelance,
like luxury items, so.
You like floral luxury, I like that. So like, it's from my side, I'm kind of on the same page as you, Whitney, I think in that sense where, I would rather, and at a point now in my career where I can be quite selective, but I would obviously much rather work on a project where you were invested in it and you can, because for me, that's your best work that you can produce when you generally connect. But unfortunately, when you're starting out, you may have to which is totally okay, because like you learn so much from those, and you just learn what you want to do, like how you want to refine like your process in the future. Like those things are those projects are definitely necessary, but I think like once you
get like a little bit more confidence under your belt, you'll feel a little bit more confident saying no to those projects and then only taking on what you're passionate about.
Definitely. And actually, just to put a bit of spin on it as well, you can sometimes, I always find with clients, you know, it's good to challenge, but you can get to a point where it doesn't necessarily have to be boring, because it depends on what that client's envision was. And as a creative, it's up to you to kind of have ideas, and you can put things in that place which gets them thinking. And it could be a completely different route that they originally started out with, and that would make it interesting because you've got them thinking differently. So a project which might start out boring could potentially not be the best project in the world, but not as boring as you initially thought. So there's always room to
there's always room for improvement, for sure. That's why I feel like those projects are definitely necessary, because they, like, some of those can actually, like you said, they can surprise you. You might actually end up being like, oh, I actually have really enjoyed this project and I thought I wouldn't have.
I love that. I can see Am's mentioned the question. He's mentioned it twice. I should answer. He's asked about how have I become Adobe Live host. So I was actually exactly probably a year from now. I was doing what Whitney was doing, where I was a designer, and then became a live host straight after, pretty much, which was quite cool. So again, it's the idea of kind of being in this space, working with creatives, and sort of seeing the design process. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. But thanks for being curious. I would say, Whitney, we're about 5 minutes now left until the end of your stream, which, I mean, again, I can't believe how quickly first day is already gone.
I feel pretty good about everything we've accomplished so far.
It's been a strong color palette game.
Yeah,
I am indeed. I mean, it'd be good to do like as you know, 5 minutes left, maybe a little recap of what we've kind of done.
I was just thinking like we could do a little. But so we built out the mood board that kind of outlines the overall like design style and tone of voice that we're moving into with the with Remi Gold's brand identity. We took the preliminary color palette and finalized a color palette here. And then we, you know, explored some font sets and we just kind of played around and kind of decided, you know, what looks best for Remi Gold's branding and kind of like what voice we want to go with, or what voice we're trying to portray in the font suite. And then tomorrow we'll be tackling like the logos and the patterns, and then we'll be tackling the patterns in Adobe Fresco. So I'm super excited about that.
Ooh, a Fresco. I'm quite new to that. It'd be good to see your process on that.
I love Adobe Fresco. I love all the brush options. Like, I feel like it's just, you could do so much in Fresco. I love it. And I love it because you literally can just stream it straight to Illustrator, which I love too. Like when you just click on a button and it just goes straight to Illustrator. It's so cool to me.
And you'll be working on the iPad, is that correct for tomorrow?
Tomorrow. So it'll be like half Illustrator, half Fresco. So I'm really excited. I hope everyone can tune in again. If not, we got the replays. We'll have the replays up.
Exactly. And I can see another question from Am as well, actually, who said, I've always heard if you don't want to do a project, make the price high. Then if they pay the price, you won't mind as much. That's a controversial one, but
I feel it's pretty controversial. Yeah, but I see that's like a good point of view though. You're like, well, at least I'm getting paid well for it.
Sometimes, I mean, you have to balance out, like, obviously, I mean, it's I always find, especially when I do talk with students as well, like pricing is such an important part of what we do. It's not the main part, but it's still important nevertheless. Just trying to have that right balance, isn't it? Of like pay up against time management and other elements.
But with me, I think I found that like, it's just not worth the money to me if I'm not passionate about it. Like, I just rather wait for like something better to come along, or, you know, like I just have to, like, I'm all about energy. So it's just like, if my energy is not aligned with it, like, I just know it's just not gonna flow. Even like on my discovery calls, like I always just feel for like the energy of the client. Like, are we a good fit? You know, cause it's like, they could be ready to, you know, drop their deposit right now, but it's like, if the energy isn't aligned, then I just know that the project's not going to run smoothly. And then it's like, you're with that client for months and months. So it's like, you have to keep that in mind too.
That's such an interesting, like a very, very important part. I think, I mean, one thing I've always kept in mind is one thing is the skill set, right, of what we do as designers and creators, but there's actually that basic people skill as well, of like how you interact with other humans and listening and being able to articulate. And I mean, that's a nice part, especially maybe even during, you know, current world climate, people are on Zoom more, where you can't actually see them in person. So you have to kind of judge on based on people's instincts from what they see on a screen. So just having that basic people skills, and if you can vibe well, then you hopefully produce good work.
And I think like coming from like a customer service background too, I used to work in a call center back in the day in my early 20s, and just building that rapport, like I think is coming in handy now with like my clients. It's just like I kind of know, like on the call center, you just like you don't see the client, I mean you don't see the customer face to face, like you're like really like, you know, judging them based off of their tone of voice and things like that. So like I feel like that comes in handy now, like with like, you know, making sure like my energy is aligned with their energy, and like kind of judging like their tone and like how they're talking to me and like how we're interacting. And yeah, it's just like I feel like it's a very important, you know, component to like a, you know, like client relationships, is to have that. You just have to make sure your energy is aligned, like always, like that. I just, if my energy's not aligned, I can't bring it on.
I mean, your energy's been super positive in this whole, I mean, even the color palette is super positive. So I feel like I was excited for this, because I feel like it's definitely portrayed.
It's like literally my personality. Yeah.
So yeah, it's, and Caroline as well, just mentioned the chat, and I can tell she's agreed. So yeah, I agree with you, Whitney. If it's not right, the project, then I would rather do personal work, she said.
Yeah. I just rather I just rather maybe wait until like another inquiry comes through, and it be a better fit than, you know, take it on and just be stressed out for like 6 months.
Yeah. So. I mean, I believe in karma as well. I feel like it's one of those ones where you do good and things will happen, and the doors eventually open. So, I mean, I feel like hopefully a lot of our audience have learned a lot today about your process and how you operate. And I can see as well,
I know it's like super condensed because we only got 2 hours, but at least I hope that everyone can kind of like get the gist of it.
Definitely, we've got a lot. And actually, Am's made a good point. He said, so he's loved this live. So relaxing to hear you guys talk about design. So, so thank you, a massive thank you for everyone who's joined us today. And just a little thing to mention. So we're back tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific time for part 2 of Whitney's design. So stick around definitely for that. And then for now, we've got coming up next will be the XD Creative Challenge with Jessie Showalter. So
that sounds
definitely
so
along for that. Whitney, it's been amazing to host you today for your first. Like, how have you enjoyed it? Have you been good?
It was really good. I feel like I'm not even sick anymore. Like I feel like I can just go out and enjoy life. Brilliant. Well, a massive thank you again to our Adobe team and everyone keeping everything safe. And again, massive thanks to everyone for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. It means the world. Yeah. Great. So we'll see you guys all tomorrow. So stay safe and take care. Have a good evening. Bye.